Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Young Hustlers here on the Cardone Zone. My name is Jared Glant. I am the president for Grant Cardone Enterprises, and the reason that we do this show every single week is so that you can get tips and strategies that you can apply in your life, both personally and professionally, to hit all the goals that you love to accomplish in your life. And so I've had the opportunity to work with Grant for almost 10 years now. I started with him when I was 26. I'm 36 now. And it changed my life forever. And we've been talking a lot lately about, just if you've been following us on social media, we've been talking a lot about coaching and mentoring and how to get the right information and apply it in your life and make it all start coming together and working. And I was sitting here this morning and I was trying to figure out, what do I really want to do the show on? And I wanted to focus today on 5 things that I learned from Grant that made me 7 figures. I believe it is these 5 things that were the catalyst to me getting to where I'm at today and on the way to where I ultimately want to go. And so, not everybody has the opportunity to work with Grant every day, and certainly that helped. But the things that I'm going to share with you today are very simple things. These are simple things, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about, they're simple things. They don't require a lot of intelligence. They don't require a lot of creativity. They're very simple things. And when you hear people talk about success, or when you hear people talk about, making big money and living the life that they've always dreamed of, you hear a lot of these little things and you're like, man, is it really that easy? Well, in theory, yes. Because if you do these very simple things, there's a good amount of them. But if you do these simple things and you're able to bring it all together, that is ultimately what will contribute to your success. Somebody says, hey, have a great attitude. That sounds pretty easy, right? But it's have a great attitude, be committed, be disciplined, be persistent, be hungry to learn, have a lot of energy, be a positive. You start thinking about all these things that sound simple, the difficulty becomes bringing it all together. And for me, there were 5 things that really impacted me in a way that will, in my mind, forever impact what I will do for both myself, my family, and my legacy. And so I'd love to share those with you guys today. So this show is called 5 Tips That Made Me 7 Figures. And these are all things that I learned from Grant. And I can't say that he was the first person that said these things to me, but he was the first person that actually showed me what it meant to do all of these things. And there's a big difference, because finding the right mentor isn't just somebody who will give you advice or ideas. It's finding somebody who will give you advice, give you the right ideas, and they're already implementing them in their own life on a massive scale, and you can see that they actually are, they're talking the talk and walking the walk, if you will. So 5 tips that made me 7 figures, and hopefully, 8 figures and 9 figures and a lot more stuff in the future. So I think I'm almost to 8 figures, so it's going in the right direction. And by the way, I never say any of this stuff to brag. This is you should look at this and you should think that this is, you should take this as inspiration. Because when I was 26 years old and I came to work for Grant, I couldn't even fathom making the money I'm making right now. In my mind, when I started working for Grant, day one, I knew there was something bigger that I was coming to be a part of. But when I came here, the biggest that I could possibly think was man, if I could make $250,000 a year. That was the biggest that I could think. If I knew how much I'd be making, how much money I make now, I'd be oh no, there's only athletes, actors, people that own big companies. Those are the only people that make that kind of money. So that ties in really well to the very first thing that you have to do if you want to be massively successful. And this one's a little tricky. You think bigger. Oh yeah, I want to make $1 billion. It's not about that. And the challenge for me, looking back now, this is something that had such a profound impact on me and how I grew as a person. But in the moment, this is extremely challenging to do because you can't really think with something that you don't understand. And, somebody hit me up and they're like, hey, you said that $1 million is nothing. I mean, $1 million when I first started working for Grant was a lot. It was more than I could even wrap my head around. Until you make $1 million and you're like, dude, that $1 million flies. That's not enough. It's not enough to get me where I want to go. Like, it's not enough to give me the life that I want to live. And you may think $1 million is great. You take that $1 million, you invest it in some annuity, you get $4 or $5 grand every month, and you go live out on a ranch in the middle of freaking Wyoming, and you're just happy, and that's all you want. But that's not that for me. That ain't the math. So for me, thinking bigger was being around and seeing a guy, Grant, who would think so much bigger. Like, he'd say stuff and I'd be like, I can't even think with that. But I didn't need to. I just needed to trust it. And I needed to move in that direction. And so then I just started asking myself, this is so stupid, but it's true. What will Grant do? I'd be writing down my goals every day. And I'd ask myself, what would Grant write? And I'd have a customer I was working with. You know, what would Grant do? I started like trying in every situation possible to be like, okay, if I were a guy like Grant, who at the time was worth tens of millions of dollars, extremely successful, if I want to be like that, then I need to start thinking like that guy now. And so for me, it was always, what would Grant do in this situation? Ooh, man, this really makes me uncomfortable. This is a tough situation. This is a challenging spot. Instead of allowing me to take over, I'd just be like, stop, what would Grant do? And I'd put myself in Grant Cardone mode. And this is something that's actually makes thinking bigger a little bit easier. Because all these little situations that come up in your life where you're like, you have questions, you have uncertainty, you don't really know what to do next, all you have to do is identify yourself with somebody who you can relate to, you can connect with. And I did a show a few weeks ago about picking a mentor. But you have to find somebody that aligns with you and somebody that you can really just dig into and follow. Like, there are a lot of experts out there who I think have great stuff to say. Like we've had them on our stages, some I haven't even met yet. And I see all these people. And if you watch little pieces, you're like, man, they got great stuff. But the problem is when you start getting too many ideas from too many different people, then what happens is you start getting a little bit confused. And so for me, it was really like, okay, simplify it down. I'm just going to follow this Grant guy because I believe that he has a lot of the things that that I would like to have, and not just material things, but like life things, family things, fulfillment things. So for me, thinking bigger was monster. And when I was writing $250,000 a year, I remember that was the first income goal that I wrote down. I was making $3,000 a month at the time. It's like, I want to make $250 grand a year, and I want to drive an S-Class Mercedes because that was like the most baller car that I could think of. And so then as I started kind of seeing how Grant operates and seeing how he thinks, then I just started asking, hey, what would this guy do? What would this guy Grant do? I couldn't ask myself because I didn't know the answer. And for a lot of you, you don't know the answers yet. But you just need to lock into somebody who is where you want to be, who's doing the things that you want to do, and you just have to keep putting yourself in that situation, asking yourself, what would Grant do, or what would whoever your mentor would be do? So number one is massive think has changed my life forever, and I still think that today I think too small. And again, until you start breaking through those layers, like right now you could be in a position where you make $5 grand a month and you're like, man, if I could make 10 grand a month, that would change my life forever. And then you get to 10 grand a month and you're like, man, it's not enough. It's not truly enough to be safe, to be secure, to have peace of mind, and then to be able to do the things you want to do. Like that is kind of important. That does add to quality of your life, and those things do cost money. So number one, think bigger. Number two, always push for more. Little tweaks and little hacks about getting more done. people will see me around the office and they're like, dude, you're a crazy man all the time. Like there's like 9 different businesses that we operate here, and I'm jumping in and out in each of every one of them all through the day, every day. People running around, jumping in. I go from one conversation to another. Like, it's a bit chaotic, but I'm always pushing for more. I'll give you an example. So one of the things that when Grant and I used to fly commercial all the time, because there was a time when we just flew commercial, we would get on flights, and the first thing was we would leave on the first flight of the day. And we would always try to book trips where we could leave on the first flight of the day and try to catch the last flight out home. So we wanted to maximize the day, first and foremost. So this wasn't an 8 a.m. or a 9 a.m. These were like 6 a.m. departure times, okay? More, right? Push for more. So we'd get on that very first flight of the morning, and then Grant would pull out a book or like a magazine, like a Harvard Business Review or something like that. He would open something up that would be educational, right? And we'd be taking off, and that's what he'd be doing. He'd be reading his book or whatever, and then the second we got Wi-Fi, computer was open, and he was jamming. He was at work. And he did that the entire flight. And then we would land, and then whenever we got to where we were at, let's say we had a meeting with somebody at 10:30, we arrived at 8:30 or 9 or whatever. We went and got the rental car and then drove to the meeting that we had. We would always have a policy of, number one, trying to get other meetings set up in that area. The second we knew we had a meeting in that town, we'd start calling and trying to find out, hey, can I stop by? Would you see me? If I came by, would you give us 5 minutes? Like we would go to work trying to jam the calendar up so that we didn't just go for that one meeting, that one big deal we were trying to pitch. We could go and we could get 7 more meetings dropped in, and we'd be driving around all day, running from place to place, getting as much as we possibly could get done, and then we'd jump on the plane, last flight of the day, and we'd come home. So pushing for more was about how do we get more accomplished? How do we make a better use of our time? And for me, the push for more, and this is more about like activity, not like, This is just, for me, it was about how do you get more done. It wasn't about pushing for anything else other than that. This was all about activity for me. And when we started getting to points where it was like, man, dude, this is just, it's a part of who I am and it's a part of what I do. I really equated this because this is work. Pushing is work. Getting more done is work. Getting up and going to the gym at 5:30 rather than not going to the gym at all or going to the gym at 7 allows you to just change the way that your day is structured. So it was like, how do I get more done? And for me, because I'm lazy. Like I believe that I'm a lazy person. I just have enough discipline to push myself a lot into the things that I don't want to do. So for me, push meant achievement. I always spell this wrong. I'll just do this. Achievement. The activity meant that if I pushed hard enough and compressed enough time, that I would actually get to where I wanted to go faster. It's like I was working out with my trainer this morning, Anthony, and he had me on this stair thing. Like I haven't been doing cardio basically like at all, like for, 3 months, like 0. I just work out, we lift weights, and now he's like, okay, hey, now it's time to actually start doing some cardio so you can shred up a little bit. So we did 30 minutes on this stair machine, right? And we kind of crept into it, and some of you are laughing at me right now, but like I'm just not a cardio person. It drives me crazy. I can't do anything for more than 10 minutes, no matter what, without changing course and doing something different. So 30 minutes was like an eternity for me. And so we started on the stair at like 5, and we did like 5 or 10 minutes, on that. And then he cranked it up to 10, and then he cranked it up to 12, and then we were doing these intervals going back and forth. And I was like, dude, this 30 minutes, I'm dripping sweat, like I'm tired. I told him, I'm like, dude, I hate your guts so much right now, just don't even talk to me. Give me some time, because the hatred will go away as my body calms down, but right now it's freaking out, and I hate your guts, so give me a minute. And we were walking out of the gym, and he goes, hey, dude, just remember, we started at a speed of 5 for 10 minutes, right? And that took 30 minutes. So just imagine if we would have started at 8 or started at 9 or started at 10. You know how much quicker we would have hit the calorie target? And then I started thinking, I'm like, well, hey, if it's gonna suck and I'm gonna have to do it no matter what, and I'm gonna wanna blow my brains out no matter what, and my legs are gonna hurt and I'm gonna be all sweaty and I'm gonna bitch and moan, like, why not get it done in 18 minutes rather than 30 minutes? And for me, that's what the push meant. That's what the push meant for me in my career. When I was selling on the phone, it was always push to get more done, push to get more calls done, push to train more, push to support your clients more. Because the more successful I was in that area and the faster that it happened, the quicker I would get the goal that I wanted. And so pushing for more allowed me to, I was 26 years old when I came to work for Grant. I was just coming out of that year, so maybe like 26 and a half. And I was a millionaire by the time I turned 31. So 4 years I was a millionaire. Because I started putting all these things together. Number one, I started thinking way bigger. Number two, I started pushing harder than I'd ever pushed before. And I look back now and I'm like, man, I just get a lot done now. That's just it, and it's subconscious for me. I don't even think about it. Anything here that seems like rocket science yet? It's very simple, right? Like, it's simple. It's the discipline to execute that is difficult. That is the thing that's hard for people to do. So number one, you just got to start thinking bigger. Refer back to, like, what would Grant do? If Grant's not your guy, your mentor, your whatever, then pick somebody else who's super successful in multiple practices over a long period of time. Warren Buffett, something like that, I don't know. The third lesson, the third tip that made me 7 figures was stay broke. Like, this was a big one for me because when I was 21 years old, I was making 250 grand a year. I was making 20 grand a month, selling advertising, living at home. Like, this was like, I didn't even know what money was. Like, I was 21 years old. Like, everybody's an idiot when they're 21 years old. I spent every penny that I had. I remember True Religion jeans were like the cool thing. I had like 15 pairs of True Religion jeans and all these, Gucci shoes, and we'd go out to the club every weekend and get tables, like every weekend. I was an idiot. I spent every dollar that I made. And I remember, like, if I could get 10 grand in the bank, like, it would be, man, I'd be rich if I could get that much money in the bank. Stupid, right? So bad times come, hard times come, quit the job, end up on unemployment. I had already started developing a drug issue, so I was smoking weed every day. And then I had lost all faith and confidence in myself. And so fortunately, I came across Grant and really, like, dove into his material. But once I started making money again with him, this thing right here was like, dude, you ain't never going back to living with a friend because you're so broke you can't afford to pay rent. Like, you're never going back to the point where you can't even think about spending money on anything other than, like, basic necessities. Like, I never wanted to go back there again. And so for me, if I wanted to get where I never had to go there again, I had to stay broke. I was like, this was out of fear. I stayed broke out of fear. And what this means is when you make money, you get rid of it and you put it somewhere you can't touch it. Like, I was like, I'm not even going to give myself the opportunity to be stupid with my money. So I want to get rid of everything that I have. And for me, that was in real estate investing. This was prior to Cardone Capital. Like, Cardone Capital wasn't even a thing yet. Grant was just making money in real estate. And I was like, I need to get rid of this money. Can I give you some of it? And we worked out a deal, and then I started investing with him. But every dollar I made, I was putting in these deals. I was making 10 grand a month. I was living in LA, my rent was $800 a month because I was renting a room somewhere. And I was sleeping on an air mattress. I was making 10 grand a month. That's enough money to buy a bed. Like, a bed's like $600. Like, for me, I was like, dude, stay broke. Don't take it for granted. Like, and that 10 grand was residual. That I didn't even have to do anything to make that money. That just came in because of business that I had already done. So for me, out of fear, I was like, dude, stay broke, continue to put your money into investments because, like, you just need to get rid of your money and get something that will pay you, with the exception of maybe like nuclear holocaust, that money will always come to me that I've invested in real estate. And it's, 10, 12, 14 grand a month today. That was more money than I could ever think about making back in the beginning when I was getting started. So staying broke was important for me because it allowed me to get rid of the temptation of being stupid with my money. And it was this right here that allowed me to start investing enough. And I started investing at a really good time, okay? Because we were coming out, so timing, a little bit of luck, never hurt anybody, right? I got invested early on at the bottom of a cycle, on the early side of a cycle, where the real estate deals that I was in just took off. Like I remember I look back, I was like, dude, I've made as much money in real estate over the last 5 years as I have in my primary job. And you never do this math. Like you can't ever work this out and predict that this is going to happen. But you look back and you try to like do the math and you're like, where did this come from? Like out of nowhere, I've doubled my income with an additional stream, right? Because I was committed enough to staying broke. This takes discipline. This takes sacrifice. This is not an easy thing to do. You're making 50 grand a month and you're living off of 7 or 8 grand a month. Like it requires a severe amount of discipline. Number 4 tip that made me 7 figures. That's what I'm talking about today. If y'all want to make 7 figures, if you want to become worth multiple 7 figures, you want to become a multi-millionaire, hopefully be worth tens of millions of dollars. These are 5 things that I'm almost there today in some big ways. Like 8 figures is a target. That's like that next benchmark target, and I'm creeping up on it, right? So number 4 was you have to play a longer game. Man, about 75% of the time, this board works great. So, yeah. So you got to play a long game. One of the biggest mistakes that young people make, like Jared, and I say this like me, young people, like myself, when I was 21 years old, I was playing a short game. I was playing it's Thursday right now, I was playing what are we going to do this weekend? That was my game. That was the game that I played. Where are we going to go? Who's coming with us? Let's go. I remember it'd be like Friday at like 5:30, and we just start texting the boys and be like, all right, we're going to Vegas. Plane leaves in an hour and a half, and we just drive there with no clothes, like just with the clothes that we had on our back, just go to Vegas and party and stay up all weekend and fly home Sunday. Like stupid, because I was playing a short game. And people will argue that, hey, you have to have experiences. That's too much stress to put on yourself. Believe me, I had some fun times, but the times that I'm having now, with money, with security, with confidence, with freedom, with my family, dude, I'll take these over those any day of the week. So playing the long game allowed me to start putting chunks of cash, 100 grand, 150 grand away. Dude, that was so much money. Think about that. You go from literally being on unemployment and broke, like barely getting by, to writing a check for 100 grand and giving it to somebody else and going back to zero. And just hoping that it pays off. And then doing it again. You stack up, you get all your stuff together, you write another check for 150 grand and you give that away. Back to zero again. Like, think about that. It's crazy. I'm like, dude, I'd written $250,000 in checks out. And I was like, dude, that was so much money at one point in time, I couldn't even think with it. Because you have to play a long game. And what I'm talking to you about, thinking bigger, right? Pushing for more, staying broke, playing the long game. These are things that are incredibly easy, but they're difficult to execute on. The thing that will help you execute on all of these is trust and faith in the person that you're following and the mentors that you have in your life. The people that are giving you advice, the people that you follow, the people that you trust, the people that inspire and motivate you. Like, these, you have to have faith in what worked for them because you've never done it before. You want to build a $100 million company? Follow somebody who's built multiple $100 million companies. You know, you want to be worth $10 million or have $50 million in real estate? Go follow somebody who's has $150 or $200 million in real estate, or maybe $1 billion. Maybe that might be a good idea. Like you got to get to where you're like, I've never been there before, so there's no possible way that I could trust myself to do it. I'm going to put my faith in some mentor who's been there, who's proven that they can stay there over a long period of time, and I'm going to freaking anchor in with them. Right? So you got to play a long game. Again, these are all, like, in conceptually, these are so simple. Would you guys agree with that? Like, this is simple stuff. This isn't rocket science. I'm not, like, believe me, like, when I sit in class, I'm not the smart kid. I'm not. Like, I'm slow to learn things. So for me, like, being a doctor or a lawyer or anybody who should make a lot of money, like, that just wasn't for me. Instead, I just came and worked hard and did a few of these simple things and found a way to be really disciplined with it, and it changed my life forever. The last thing that I learned from Grant, you have to be able to connect with some purpose of what you do. Like, there has to be something bigger than a paycheck that you show up for every day. Trust me on this. At some point, when money is the target, and it has been for me, and I'm going through this thing right now, and you will continue to go through this. Grant goes through this, okay? You have to find purpose in what you do, because at one point, at some point in time, the money will not matter. And it's the craziest thing in the world, because most of the stuff that we've talked about to get up to this point is focused on money, but purpose is focused on the thing that keeps driving you. So for us here, when I think about purpose, when I think about the job that I have here working for Grant, I think about the 26-year-old who sees a YouTube video for the first time. And today we've got 170 employees in our office. We had 3 when we moved here 5 years ago. When I think today about a hard day, I don't think about making over $1 million a year. I don't think about the nice car. I don't think about, like, the vacations that when I'm having a bad day, what I show up and think about is, dude, hey, there's somebody out there right now who's 26 years old, who's just finding Grant, and you have the ability to give them the same path and the same experience and the same outcomes that I've had with this career. And so for me, that is the thing that will always continue to push and drive me, because eventually at some point, like, what's the difference between $5 million and $7 million a year? It's stupid. It's all stupid. Like, you have to come back down to what is the reason, aside from money, that you do what you do. And believe me, I'm going through this transformation right now, because I'm like, dude, I make a lot of money. Do I want to make more? Of course. Because it's in line with my goals. It's in line with the things that I want to do, not the things that I want to have, the things that I want to do. So of course I want to make more money. But I want to help more people. I want to build a bigger company so that we can help employees, so that employees can come into the company and have an experience where they start in shipping and end up in sales, or they start in sales and end up as an executive vice president of the company, or starting on the phones and ending up as president of the company. Like, within the company, we have the opportunity to do that. And with the public, we have the opportunity to help people achieve their goals, hopefully faster than they ever could have on their own. But you can't do that unless you have great mentors who give you great advice. And the mentors are trusted sources. And so, maybe I'm that person for you. I know that a lot of people have reached out and said that. But, like, all I'm doing is I'm looking at Grant and I'm thinking, what would Grant do? How do I execute on these things that he's done? How do I kind of follow in his footsteps? I'm just trying to figure that out. I just have a little bit closer proximity than you. You guys all have the same opportunity on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. Like, all of these things that I'm sharing with you, Grant talks about all the time. You just have to be aware enough to start picking some of these pieces out and then being disciplined enough to go, hey, I'm actually going to put this in my life. We are going to actually in like 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, I don't know exactly what the math is, but this Saturday at noon, we're going to do a live mentoring session from Grant. Now, people pay $10,000 to sit with Grant for 10 minutes over a cup of coffee. People pay $25,000 to come sit in Grant's office for 30 minutes. And people pay $100,000 to sit with Grant for an hour for 4 coaching sessions. Saturday, he's doing one of these mentoring sessions absolutely free. We want to give this to you guys as an opportunity for Grant to deliver some value to you that you can say, hey, here's some structure and here's some format around the things that I need to do today that will get me on track to where I want to go. So I encourage you guys, go to grantcardone.com/mentor, 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 and get enrolled in this thing. And make sure you show up. Show up for you, show up for your goals, show up for your dreams, show up for the success that you want to have in your life. Don't show up for us. Like, it's on a Saturday. I'd rather be with my kid at the 48 hours and 26 minutes. That's about how long we got. 32 seconds. You know, like Grant he'd rather be with his family. But we are like saying, hey, look, let's come back. Let's bring it all together. Let's do a big fat mentoring session. Let's deliver a ton of value to people and hopefully get them on track to where they can close out their year strong. 3 more months left in the year. We're 2.5 more months left in the year. It's not too late. It's not too late to turn things around. It's not too late to get what you want out of this year. I know people who have done 12 months of production in 2 months. So if you've given up on the year, if you've written off, it's not too late. You just have to make a decision right now. And a great way to kick all that off and to kick a new gear for pushing for more for the last 2.5 months of the year will be go to grantcardone.com/mentor and sign up for our mentoring program, our mentoring session rather, so that you can come in. It's probably going to be 90 minutes. It's at noon on Saturday. And spend 90 minutes with Grant, and he's going to start breaking down some things, these checklists that you have to go through to figure out, like, where are my weak points and where do I need to focus on? And I promise you, you'll leave that mentoring session with more focus, more direction, a bit more inspiration, hopefully some motivation, and a few more skills to get you to everywhere that you want to go and do it in half the time. 2.5 months left in 2019, and then we're turning over to 2020. 2020. Let 2020 be the year that you have perfect vision for your goals and your dreams and your future. You like that? Huh? You like that? So look, I appreciate you guys being here. 5 tips that made me 7 figures. I know they'll do the same thing for you, but you just have to get committed today to saying, hey, I'm going to start putting these things in my life, and no matter the sacrifices that I need to make, no matter how disciplined I have to be, how much more disciplined I have to be, I'm going to make the commitment to do it, and make the commitment to joining us on Saturday, noon, East Coast Standard Time, grantcardone.com/mentor, grantcardone.com/mentor. Spend a little time with Uncle G on Saturday, helping you line everything out to make sure that you close the year out strong. And remember, we'll be back here next week, same time, Thursday, noon, East Coast Standard Time, here on Young Hustlers. And remember, the only people who condemn the hustle are the ones who've already given up on the hustle themselves. See you next time.